Welcome, beautiful souls, to the Beyond the Belief podcast. I'm your host, Lavender Loveway. With each episode, I invite you personally to join me as we explore a belief. It might be a widely held idea, or a forgotten truth, or perhaps even one that feels unknown or deeply contested. This is a sanctuary for exploration, a place to absorb, listen, and learn with an open heart. We're shedding the heaviness of right and wrong and ascending into the lightness of greater connection and expansive knowledge. Today's episode is no exception. This is another precious opportunity to find a little gem or two of wisdom that helps you reweave your own tapestry of truth. Hello, my beautiful friends, and welcome to episode 3. I'm so excited to be here. We're going to be talking about a subject that has been very close to my heart for at least the last, I want to say 2 months of our lovely time. But recently it's just been very, I don't want to say heavy, but I want to say the gravity of it has just been powerful. And I'm excited to share it here with y'all so that maybe possibly this might be the Beyond the Belief introduction that you need to maybe contemplate this. Because I will tell you very candidly, a couple of months ago, if you would have said, Lavender, this is something that you're going to understand fully, and basically these two things of your body and messages that you need to receive, they are actually correlated. Maybe I would have believed you, okay, sure, tell me more. But now I know through my own experience, and I want to kind of share and journey through how I got there so that you might be able to walk in my shoes for a couple of steps and possibly try it on for yourself. So here's kind of the premise for today's episode, that the message or a message or maybe even multiple messages that you need to hear or understand or be aware of are being transmitted through your body. These are divine messages. So messages from your guides, your higher self. And as I like to say, once the message or messages are received, the ailment or ailments are relieved. So believe it or not, what your body is communicating right now can be set free, but it's dependent upon our ability to receive the message of what they're basically posting and trying to communicate. And because our bodies, our human beautiful bodies, are not supposed to be in pain or all the way down to be in some state of illness, disease, etc., it's actually a self-healing, shall I say, machine. It's supposed to be self-healing. So if you are experiencing any ailment, whether that be aches, right, into pains, into illness, into disease, it's basically the deepening of a message that you have not received or not taken maybe a moment to understand, dive into. And truly, truly, I know this from my own experience. Then we often, if we are experiencing anything in the body, we try to hush the message. We do this through taking pills or doing body treatments, or maybe we even attempt to ignore it altogether. Just nope, not today. Nope. And it truly was not until my own QHHT sessions for myself, my own body, that this unlocked this for me personally. But then going through studying and understanding, I'm going to share that here in just 2 seconds, of others' perspectives and how these kind of stack up and I don't know, kind of join into this message, amplify the message, I should say. And then also me as a QHHT practitioner hosting sessions for others, for them to connect with their own higher selves, their own guides, the all-knowing, as Dolores called the SC, which she named them the subconscious, which is not to be confused with the psychological subconscious, which Dolores calls the left brain, conscious mind. But more so the all-knowing, the oversoul, and often is referred to our higher self. But to me, it's, and what Dolores shared, it's kind of beyond that. It's like literally the all-knowing. So I would love to share with you a little bit how I learned what and how your body is communicating with you. It's very interesting. So let me share with you first just kind of my journey to understanding this. So I started actually with Louise Hay. She had written a book. I want to say I bought it, was it maybe 2 years ago or so, if I'm looking time-wise? And the book is called Heal Your Body: The Mental Causes for Physical Illness and the Metaphysical Way to Overcome Them. So already I had kind of started, if you will, dabbling in this space of interesting that we're in essentially control. We have primary influence over the things that are happening to our body, within our body is expressing. And thumbing through the book, I have it on my shelf, just kind of going through different ailments or different areas or locations of the body, and essentially the layers, right, of what the message is, what it's trying to communicate. And then this kind of blossomed into my journey into QHHT specifically. Funny enough, my journey with QHHT didn't start with QHHT. It's actually started with Dolores Cannon and then learning about QHHT in the gift to all of us, basically through the master of her craft. But essentially listening to her lectures and reading her books, understanding and connecting these things through each of her clients. I mean, profound stories of, I know she said healing, I'll use the word relieving, but relieving of cancer. I mean, just, it's there and then it's gone. Clients walk into her practice with crutches, walk out without them. A profound story, rebuilding cartilage in the knees, which is impossible according to doctors today. So she would see, literally, as she called them, miracles in her office, and speaks through, again, her books, her lectures. And for those of you that would love to partake, there's quite a few lectures on YouTube that are great. And they're still incredibly and beautifully relevant into this moment of now. But I learned also through some of her lectures and books too that, you know, the cold or flu, we're never supposed to be sick. We're not supposed to get those things, right? We're not supposed to get a cold or a flu. But these can be leveraged to give us a moment of normally desperately needed rest. It's our higher self, our guides saying, hey, slow down, like you need to rest. And so if you're not going to rest, okay, I'm going to make you rest. Here comes, here comes the flu. And for me, it was profound, not only hearing it, but when I actually sat down and reflected on it, like, okay, let me think about the last couple of times I was sick. I'm like, holy cow. And what was happening in those moments was absolutely true. I was not resting. I was trying to push through. I was trying to make it all happen. There was no sense of harmony in my life. And so this is when I started to kind of like, really kind of consider this, because I'm like, okay, there's too much truth vibrating within me, right? This is resonating too deeply. But then listening to her share her messages, and this is what I love about Dolores's work, that for me personally, it really appeases and appeals to both my left brain. So hello, conscious analytical mind. I call it the analytical mind. She calls it Mr. Stupid. Bless her soul. For me, Mr. or Ms. Analytical, but It really appeases my left brain and my right brain. Hello, gorgeous divine connection. And it made sense and also kind of magically revealed client after client after client story and I guess passages and what have you. And Dolores also shared that I believe it was, well, it's deeply expanded in her book, Keepers of the Garden, which is awesome. I've read it, as well as she touches on this specific story as well, kind of history point, if you will, that the Earth was, until it was basically hit by a meteor, its early days did not have the kind of bacteria and the infection introduced, or basically the contamination. And so originally, Earth was supposed to be like a Garden of Eden where everything is beautiful and perfect. And so until this moment, then it was introduced. And so our bodies are not supposed to get sick. And so if we are experiencing sickness, then there's something deeper happening. And it kind of made me pause, right? Because it's like, all right, there's my famous phrase is anytime I get into a position where I might not understand something or what have you, I literally am like, this is curious. It keeps me in a position and a perspective of curiosity instead of judgment or kind of shutting things off or obviously running with my left brain. It's like, okay, that is curious. Let me inquire to understand more. Let me ask deeper questions. So this was that moment for me. And then understanding through what she was sharing that basically our body and the ailments that it's experiencing are how our guides or the SC or our higher self, or basically us, are trying to get messages to us, to our human self. And then it's imperative to receive these. And this is how. This is what's an indicator basically for us. And I'll share here in just a moment of how we're already not listening. So our, higher self, the SC, our guides don't start with our body. They start with trying to get our attention. And again, I'll talk about it here in 1 second. But so knowing if it's gone into the body, this is something that you have been ignoring or something that you're not listening to for a while. And there's no specific timeline. I think every being is different, but we can at least confidently say that it's been a hot minute. And this is our opportunity to see this and to receive this and to have a moment of, right? Curious. Then through my QHHT studying, I then was introduced to Julia Cannon's work. So Julia is Dolores' daughter who invested 20 years of her basically life, her career as a nurse, and obviously had a very deep study and practice of the body. And funny enough, it was a calling from them. So them referring to the SC, for Julia to write a book about it. And Julia jokes, I've heard her in different lectures and different shows, different podcast features, what have you, where she's literally like, I didn't want to write this. And I was trying to basically say my mom should write it, meaning Dolores, because she had all these examples already from all these, thousands and thousands of QHHT sessions. But no, it was a task for her to do. And especially given her 20 plus years in nursing and studying the body. So she actually wrote a book called Soul Speak. And I've read it. It's a pretty quick read. I would definitely have it on your shelf. I have referred to it many times. It's not, I wouldn't say it's, highly detailed. I mean, there's other resources. Actually, one of my fellow QHHT practitioners sent me a link to a book that has like over 700 pages of metaphysical mapping, basically of the entire body and into every single thing. So, choose the resource that's right for you. But Julia's book is great because it's kind of short, concise, to the point, but also gets you to start thinking about different parts of the body. So not only just the ailment or the expression of it, so the pain or the disease or what have you, but also where it's located, because those are kind of like the two layers of meaning. And she laid out through this book basically the groundwork for different areas of the body, domains of the body. So I'll give you an example. The right side of our body, if the ailment location is on the right side, it has to deal with our current life experience now. And the left side has to do with past lives or past experience. And these things, basically a lot of it, if not, I think all of it, but obviously Julia took it to kind of the next level. But these things are also kind of calibrated and proven through Dolores's work and other fellow QHHT practitioners. But Julia really laid the groundwork for also specific symptoms. So I'll give you a couple that just really stuck out to me. Like, for example, having a hump or a rounded back is from bowing down to the pressure of others, or not standing tall or standing up for oneself. It's like, wow. But then you kind of think about how literal it is. Because there, I'm thinking right on your back, you're kind of hunched down, you're kind of curling in. So it's interesting how these things are being communicated, yet we physically do that when we're in a position of kind of like cowering or bowing down, right? Another example, talking about blood clots, and that blood clots specifically represent a blockage within the system, a system, wherever it is, wherever it's located, and not allowing for flow or not allowing the flow. And then the other layer to that is where the blockage is or where the blood clot was. And so depending on that location, that gives you the blockage, basically area of your life. So as a further example, blood clots in the brain could be around intuition, could be development, or even exercising one's higher psychic abilities, could be monitoring or regulating actions and reactions. Because all of these things that I'm mentioning, their epicenter is basically the head, the brain, as well as the crown and third eye chakras. And obviously there's further meaning for, let's say, a stroke or what have you, but like just trying to keep it as surface as possible. Just to dip your toe into it, right? Just to kind of get a little taste. So it's really interesting to start thinking about these two layers of like, what is the expression? So let's say blood clots, but then where is this expression happening? And the location also gives you further meaning. And then also based on the research that she did, she expanded basically on what Dolores had already identified through thousands, right? And thousands of QHHT sessions. But to me, she also expanded, and this was a key takeaway for myself. She expanded that these messages can also be from yourself. So obviously you can think about it like, okay, you know, the SC or basically the all-knowing is trying to communicate with me, or my guides. And if y'all want to dive into who our guides are, actually the last episode, episode 2 of Beyond the Belief, is all about your guides. So feel free to check that out. I'll leave in the show notes. But your guides are any beings basically on the other side of the veil who are helping you, assisting you, guiding you. So we're already thinking, okay, others are trying to get our attention, but what if we're actually trying to get the attention of ourselves? And this is where it really just kind of hit home for me. So as an example, she talked about cancer. And cancer, obviously, whenever we hear it, okay, so if we look at the meaning of this, Dolores talked about this in many different sessions, as does Julia in her book, but cancer is basically the repression of anger. And it's the furthest along because it's basically the disease. It's the furthest along before basically death. So in this case, cancer repressed anger, you have repressed anger for so long. You've taken it from an ailment to a pain to an illness to a disease. You've taken it down the scale. We'll talk about that here in a second. But when talking about then cancer also, as we see it even culturally, it's the most drastic basically measure because it's serious. But think about it this way, and what Julia was sharing is that it's the most drastic measure to get your attention to finally look at the situation. So to finally look at your repressed anger, let's say, and depending on where the cancer is residing, that area of your body is also communicating in what, or what the domain is of the anger. And sometimes at this level, right, at this serious level, it's the only way to get us to stop long enough to look at it. So it got me thinking about, wow, we think just the severity. And then obviously the minute we hear cancer, we think death. But the incredible thing, and I heard this, I don't even know how many times, Dolores talking about it, other QHHT practitioners suddenly being relieved of cancer. Okay, how does that happen? We'll talk about it here in a second. But we get serious, but it's a moment because don't we often know, maybe of someone or heard stories of someone that maybe that was the biggest turning point in their life. And so often this is a way, and candidly, we shouldn't get to that point. We shouldn't get to the point where we have to like really stop and look. We should be paying attention earlier, which is why I'm putting out this episode as a gentle invitation to think about the things that you're experiencing in your body, because they can progress, and they will. As long as we don't receive the message or messages, they will continue to progress. So back to this cancer, right, example. I'll share with you a quote. She says, Julia says, "This is something you set up to tell yourself if you got off track and need help getting back on course. So the first thing that must be done here is to look at the cancer as a message that you have sent yourself, and not as the attacker that has come to claim your life. You are finally aware enough to see it for what it truly is, a loving message you really need to hear." End quote. But isn't that powerful? And taking a moment to think, again, curious, what is this trying to communicate to me? So it's just, again, shifting. This is what I love about this podcast, beyond the belief. It's beyond it might be beyond your belief. You might be sitting here saying like, Lavender, what the heck? This is wacky. Or holy moly, what is this? And again, allow this to be an invitation for you to ponder this, like this message. So I'd highly encourage you to pick up her book too. It was very helpful for me. But again, there are other resources and books out there. I mentioned the book that has over 700 pages of metaphysical mapping of the body. There's lots of resources that are now starting to pop up about basically the spiritual or the deeper, the metaphysical meaning of the thing, of the ailment, of the what have you. So let me expand into then my journey to this now becoming part of my belief system, my personal beliefs. Of course, it's always interesting to hear something and to, again, start to connect with it. But for me, I saw it all come together right in front of me in my own QHHT sessions, as well as hosting them for others. And so obviously some of this I was studying to become a practitioner, but through my natural curiosity too, researching other things that interconnected with this. But I want to actually share some learnings from either mine or my clients. I'll share with you one specific to mine because I'll actually talk about it a little deeper, but or maybe two. I don't share things that are defining from clients. That's just part of what I do. But I will kind of share the overarching message because I think that it's interesting and there's parallels. And a couple of these I've seen with other people I know as well. So it's like it hits very close to home. So let me share a few with you. First thing, the right ear. An ailment in the right ear is not listening to something that's being shared in the current life experience or something that's happening right now in their current life experience. So they're experiencing issues or challenges, swelling, etc., in the right ear. For me personally, I had this in both ears. And I was told that it expanded. It started in my right, but expanded to my left because I was not listening. I had liquid in my ears first, and it started in my right ear. And then the liquid expanded to my left ear. So with it starting in my right, this is meaning my current life experience. With it expanding to my left, normally that would then be, past experience, as I've learned. But I have learned that sometimes there's just a little nuance. So for me, and it's very individual. This is where QHHT sessions are so helpful because you get to connect with yourself. There's no other telling. It's you telling yourself your connection. But what I learned in my own QHHT session is that it expanded into the left because I wasn't listening. So now it's affecting both ears, which basically both ears are for listening. And then I still wasn't listening. So then it progressed to having eczema in both of my ears. And specifically with the eczema, it was communicating that, and what's interesting about eczema, and I'll just say this that I learned from Dolores' sessions, eczema can sometimes be tied to your past lives and how you died in past lives. So the specific location or how, or both, or in my case, neither, at least so far that I know. I have not explored it fully, but so far that I know, the eczema actually came up for me specifically because my higher self and my guides were trying to communicate that I needed to be in a more humid climate and away from the dryness of where I currently reside in Phoenix. It's very dry here. So this was communicating, and that my guides and my higher self were trying to communicate with me that I needed to return back to Portland, which is a very humid climate, not hot, but humid. Well, sometimes hot, but not like Phoenix. So the messages were coming through in that, like basically to me. I'll talk about it here in 2 seconds again, but I wasn't listening. And so then it starts going into my body and it started getting progressively worse. I mean, to the point where I went to the doctor and was like, why am I getting this liquid in my ears? And the doctor was like, I have no idea. This is so weird. Maybe it's allergies, which is always my favorite. It's like, yes, everything is allergies. I'm allergic to everything. But there was no solution. And then the eczema, I love, bless these practitioners' souls, my doctors and nurses and what have you. But they're like, okay, pour cortisone in your ear, but not in your ear, just outside your ear. But don't do it for more than like 5 days because that's not good. So it'll probably come back, and then just wait till it's bad enough and then put it on again. It's like, wait, so there's no helping this? It's like, no, sorry. And then guess what, y'all? When I had my session and I inquired as to, right, my practitioner helped me inquire via me, because obviously this was one of my questions that I brought to my session of why the heck do I have liquid and eczema in both of my ears? And the answer was, you're not listening. You haven't been listening. We're trying to basically amp it up because it started on the right side, went to the left side. You're still not listening. But the moment that I received the message that I needed to return back to Portland, it's basically almost gone. And funny enough, I confirmed in a later session, it seems to be going away, but it's not fully gone. The liquid's gone. The eczema is not. And like I would literally say, if I were to get really left brain on you, it's like at 95%. There's just like a little 5% holding on. And it's like, what's going on with this? And my SC laughed and said, once the transition is complete and Lavender is back in Portland, it will go away. So it's just holding on, just reminding me. I'm like, just wait, just get my house sold. So thinking about that is just wild, because you wouldn't think that would be the case, but it is, my friends. It is. This is my personal example, okay, of this. And the eczema was representing the dry climate, being in a humid climate. And funny enough, if I look to my human design profile, this is where my initial question came in when I asked my guides this originally in my daily tarot kind of reading practice that I have, meditative practice. If I look at human design, my environment, the environment where my all the best things of me are, is in a humid climate and around humidity. So steam, baths, showers, hot water, right? Like those things are really good for me. So go figure. It all aligns. When you stand back and look at the whole picture, you're like, there it is. But sometimes we as humans, we just get too zoomed in, right? We're too ground level of like, this freaking eczema. And it's like itchy and like, oh my God, it was the worst. So never had, and by the way, never had eczema in my ears ever in my life. I have had eczema and I've asked for that to be relieved. And guess what? I haven't seen it in 2 months. So it is gone. But I had it like on my wrists, but I've never had eczema in my ears. Never. Never, 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 never. So I digress. So there's an example, personal one. Okay, back to clients. Well, actually, let me share one more here with y'all. So talking about grinding my teeth. So I'll share another personal story, and then I'll jump back in and we'll finish out clients. But I had been grinding my teeth so badly that I would have to get mouth guards made by the dentist. And so for those of you that know the difference between a mouth guard from a dentist and a mouth guard from like a sporting goods store, is that it's like super hard and specific and it's framed for your mouth and it's like high velocity to help you with teeth grinding. And I originally had to get one because I literally ground off a chunk, like a little chip of my tooth. And I've been wearing them since 2004. Right now, currently, when I'm recording this, it is 2025. And yeah, so it's 21 years. Okay, forgive me if I did that math wrong, but so you're like, dang. Okay, so, and I would buy these mouth guards from the dentist and I would go through 2 a year. I would chew through them. I don't even want to, I'm not even going to go there and add up how much I've spent on those night guards. But the bizarre and wild thing is I asked my practitioner, I want to stop grinding my teeth. Can you help me ask why? What's happening? So I learned in my first session and that I am an oracle, which is so beautiful. I will dedicate an episode all to it to share y'all more about it. But that I am an oracle. I'm living a simultaneous experience right now. And I reside as an oracle on a planet near Arcturus. So for anyone who gets a QHHT session and that sounds familiar to things that have been disclosed to you, hit me in my DMs. But because of this ability that I have as an oracle, I can actually see into the paths, and basically when I give advice to others, it's like genuine and real and can actually empower these individuals. I never realized I had this, I guess power, if you will, or ability, but I learned that I did. And so the teeth grinding was basically from harboring and not speaking my truth, that I would give advice or provide advice to others. But when I would see them not take the advice, which I knew was good advice, I knew was, a way for them to get out. And I'm not even saying they chose something different and, they're still, you're right, they're still on the pathway out. No, normally it would be that they would just go back to what they were doing, essentially. And I would hold or harbor that frustration or even fear for them not making a change. And I would hold the energy in my jaw. And I would not speak about it or share it. Like, let's say, share my sadness or, just my worry or concern or whatever. I wouldn't share anything. I'd just harbor it. And so instead, what happened is that it maintained or kept in my jaw. And this happened for years. And I learned that basically also when I give advice, that my advice might not be trusted in a sense of being heard and or received and or acted upon. And so the reason I would grind my teeth is this was the only way for my body to expel the energy that I had basically stored in my jaw. Isn't that just, oh my God, it's so wild. And so what my SC said is that I need to learn to release, that my job or my duty as an oracle, let's say, is not to control the end action. It's to provide the advice. It's to provide the guidance. It's to provide the clarity, and then allow someone to basically take the next step of whatever step. And if it is going backwards, then that is their choice. This is the law of free will. And so until I understood this and basically receiving this message, then this was going to continue. But I will say this right now very confidently and very excitedly. Yep. Basically, I think it's tomorrow. Basically. So let's just say now. It's been 2 months that I have not worn my mouth guard. Instantly, it was relieved. They expelled all the energy that was in my jaw. They would continue to do so for the next 3 nights, which is normally a pretty, it can happen. I'd say a pretty regular thing from QHHT, that the next couple of nights after your practice, you're going to have some vivid, or your session, you're going to have some more vivid dreams. You're going to have additional healing, additional release. So it happened to me for those next couple of nights, but I have not worn my night guard in 2 months. And I've not been able to do this for basically 21 years. So these things, I mean, telling you, it's just the sheer gravity. So receiving the message of what I was doing to myself and then stepping into my light of knowing that, yes, I am here to give guidance to others. That is my purpose. And I should not then not do that because of fear that they won't receive it or won't take action on it or won't do it. That's not my domain. My domain is to share and to empower others to make the choice and then to release whatever happens. If I continue to do the same behavior, what will happen is that I will start to grind my teeth again. It will just basically return. So until I release it, right, receive the message and change my behavior. And in this case, my ears are a perfect example. Until I reside and move all my stuff, which is it's not a lot. I'll have to share the story with y'all, how my guides have asked me to give basically everything away. It's been the most freeing experience of my life. But take my belongings, whatever those things are, with me to Portland and to move. I still got, this relative 5% of eczema hanging on. So it's just, so profound. So let me share some other things that I have learned from sessions, either my clients, other practitioner clients, etc. But just QHHT guidance, right? Session guidance from clients. So first, skin breakouts. So like a rash. Obviously, depending on the location, can communicate different things. This specific client, it was around their heart. And this was about giving one's life decisions and power over to someone else. So basically, they had contracted this, basically like an infection that was initially, when they contracted it, they were in this space of giving their power over to someone else. And it's basically their will, which can be associated with our hearts, our heart space. And that every time that they would continue to do this, maybe with other people, that they would get this flare up on their chest. So profound. Another one, ignoring body indicators of energy. So someone was very receptive to receiving messages through their body, ended up turning into complete numbness. So they couldn't feel parts of their body. And this was because they kept ignoring the feelings they were receiving. And so basically it was being shut off to ask, right? Like, why can't I feel? And that was one of their superpowers, by the way. Another client, right hip pain. Now, hips are interesting. They often are correlated also with our knees and our feet. If we have challenges or issues, like, for example, I learned this from Dolores' sessions, knees can be resisting moving forward, resisting making the change to move forward, or standing or running in a direction of one's truth. That maybe there's some resistance there, and this is why cartilage can then be eaten away and gone. So again, it's kind of literal, but so this specific client with their right hip. So right meaning their current life, which ended up being true. It was from their current life. And this is how their higher self or guides were trying to basically slow this person down because they were moving too fast. They're going. They're not slowing down ever and not giving themselves basically a moment to rest and to sit down. And so this was their guides and their higher self way of getting them to sit down because the pain was too great. They had to sit down. And then by inquiring into this, it's like, oh, okay, I just need to give myself more space. I need to allow myself more rest. and the pain was expelled. Another severe stress that's being harbored internally, resulting actually in hair loss. Now, what's interesting is that one of them was a client who wasn't slowing down. So basically, they're not slowing down. They're traveling so fast that their hair is falling out, and stress around the movement. So they feel like they have to be there and here and all over the place. And then they're noticing that they have hair loss. Well, it's because they're just moving so fast, their hair is just basically flying out. So again, it's literal, but it's also individual. And another client, funny enough, also hair loss, but this one, being in the head location wise of their hair loss. So the head can be associated with not like our functions, how we monitor our life and regulate our actions and reactions and our life experience, because that's kind of the domain of the signal, let's say. And this other client, so with it being head hair loss, it was feeling stress in basically regulating their actions and reactions in their life experience. And because they weren't regulating and they were just kind of reacting and just going with it, it resulted in hair loss. I remember a specific session that Dolores actually had with a client who basically their hair loss was because of a vitamin B12 deficiency. So again, there can be just some, specific things, but these messages they're all in the same domain. I'll say it like that. They're in the same domain. What else? This is a big one. Another client. So they had contracted genital herpes. And in inquiring, and this is, as a QHHT practitioner, my role is to ask, to kind of be a shepherd and a guide of asking the internal questions of my client's internal, again, higher self and guides. And then obviously with the all-knowing with the SC, and to kind of help facilitate on their behalf so that they can hear those things from within themselves, which ends up on the recording, which I will say, keep listening to the recording, keep receiving the healing, keep kind of residing in that vibrational frequency of the messages coming through. But so so part of anytime there's an ailment, my first question is what's the message? Why is this happening? What is the domain of this? And the answer was that they contracted it because they were ashamed of their own sexuality, of being judgmental towards their own sexuality, and then feeling stuck or punishing oneself because of their sexuality. So this was the why. And then asking for the healing, basically, or the relieving or the clearing. Okay, so the answer was yes for this client because they had already stepped out of that energy of shame and self-punishment. But their SC made it clear that if they had not done so, they could not be cleared of it, that they still reside in that energy. And so until they choose to get out of or, move out of that energy, they will basically continue to bring it back. So they must stay with it until they can move forward out of it. But now they know they've received the message of why they have it in that case. But in this case, they had already stepped out of it, out of the energy of shame and self-punishment. And so they were able to be relieved of it. So it's just from this experience, I'm telling you, it's life-changing. It really is. And I feel so honored and so blessed to just be in this presence of understanding these things and hearing these things from the all-knowing that exists in all of us. So as a side note, that SC that comes through each of us is also interconnected within all of us. So a similar message is heard across client to client to client. And that's when I know I'm in the presence of something majestic. It is, wow. And I can relate to all the messages that I then heard of Dolores saying that she feels so in awe, that this is like profound, beautiful, incredible work, because I will tell you, it absolutely is. And I see it from that perspective now. So it's very gorgeous. So now let's talk about, what do these messages mean? We're receiving these messages. As I shared, they can have different little deviations of difference. But at the foundation or the baseline kind of basis of it all, it is communication of a message. I like to see it as if your body is an inbox. It's a physical inbox for things that you're not receiving. So, for example, if you have someone taking your calls for you, let's say an executive assistant, and they are telling you their message, the messages that you're receiving from others, they're giving your basically your phone messages in person, or even they're calling you or what have you. Well, you're receiving them, let's say in live time. But let's say you're in a meeting, they can't give it to you live, so they're actually going to deposit it somewhere. And especially if let's say you're busy for 20 days and you're at the point where you're like, I don't even want to know how many messages I have. Because at this point, I get 20 calls a day and it's been 20 days and oh my God, right? You're like, no, I don't want it. Okay. So this is where the inbox starts to come in and it starts to pile up. Because it's not just one message. It can't, obviously, the origination of one message, but they're trying to get through to you. And I'll also say, as an extra little layer here, our intuition also hosts messages in our body too. Some of us can feel it instantly. Like every time I talk about this one thing, I feel this, little twinge of something in my stomach, or I feel something in my leg, or it's always on my right side, or, we actually can feel that if we really tune in. Others of us, we might get a certain emotional feeling, like a hesitation or it's something that's coming through. So our body is used as a communication vehicle. I see it also like an instrument cluster. For those of you that know about cars, right? The dash, like all your lights, all your indicators, how fast you're traveling, all that stuff. Like that is what your body is. And it's also sensing and giving you messages, because again, remember, we are not our bodies. We have a body. We are the beautiful observer that sits at the back that gets to watch everybody and gets to see the instrument cluster. And then when our body is communicating something to us, it's not that we are our body. So if we do get to that point where we have, cancer, we are not our cancer. That's what Julia kind of is inviting us to see, that these things are messages. And so what can we as the observer receive from our inbox, that message, and look at it and be like, is this something that I want to make a change on? Is this something I need to receive? So I had never, in my life experience up until this point, a couple months ago, I've never made the connection that our bodies are actually hosting messages from our guides, from our higher self. And I had known about the intuition part because I felt that. And maybe it's a bias because I did. But when our guides, and again, I spoke about it right in episode 2. And again, it's in the show notes for you if you'd like to check it out, of Beyond the Belief. But they are here to help guide us. They are here to help literally guide our actions. Or I see it kind of it's like a council. It's like you're the CEO and they're the rest of your C-suite, and they're giving you updates, information. You might be pointing at them like, hey, what does this mean? What is this? This is happening. What's the basis for that? So they're giving you guidance, but it's also based on, my other belief is that we designed our incarnation. So we chose the things that we're experiencing for a reason. So it's not to just be here to suffer. That's not a reason. That's our ego. That's our choice. We are here for a reason, a destiny, a objective, to experience something. Dolores called it a school. I don't believe that Earth is a school. I believe Earth is an experience, a place of experience where we can have different experiences, that we can maybe learn things, but not from a school perspective. I don't think it's that grindy. But again, this is my belief system. So all that to say that our guides, and then as Julia points out, our higher self even, are trying to get messages to us. So when they're trying to get messages to us, here's where I believe that it starts. They start to get our attention through synchronicities or parallels. Maybe they're numbers, maybe pay attention to numbers, or the same thing keeps popping up, or the same cute little, stuffed animal you keep seeing, or the butterfly You just keep seeing the butterfly everywhere. It could come through body sensations. So every time you're in that location, you feel this thing in your right hand. Or every time you talk about this one thing, your left leg twitches. Or, right, so there's consistencies essentially through these. Or it could also be sensory messages through our clairs. So being clairaudient, clairvoyant, right? So it's something with our clair senses. It could be our physical senses too. Like every time this happens, I become very cold. Or I have this inner knowing. Like, I don't know why I know this. I don't have enough information to tell you that I know this, but I know this. So it's maybe, and you could hear it. Maybe you hear it, nobody else hears it. So you're clairaudient. You can hear something. So they're trying to get our attention, and often relentlessly. How I see this also is often through repetition, or it could be through like volume. maybe you hear something in your ear, a high pitch, or maybe there's like a static, and then it just keeps getting louder and louder, or it keeps perpetuating. It like something is trying to get our attention. But often when we experience these things, we're like, I don't have time for that. Or like, whatever, and on to the next. And like, I'll deal with it later. And then you just keep forgetting or keep not prioritizing it, or, whatever it may be. And it just keeps happening and happening. And so we get on this loop, basically. Continues to happen. If they can't get through those ways, so they will continue to try. And they're going to try to also, like, this is where I believe it is a relationship, because, think about your best friend, or, your three, best friends, right? The friends that are the best and closest to you. You might have inside jokes. You might have things that communicate, you could always say, let's say one of them, you got your safe word is cacao. And so every time you hear cacao, you think of them. But if you were to say cacao to me, I'm like, okay, you want some, or like, you like it, or what are you trying to say? Right. So you have like inside jokes or things. Okay. Your guides are doing the same thing. Your higher self is doing the same thing. They're trying to develop these things with you. And once you start to catch on, I will tell you, it happens to me all the freaking time. Even with my daily practice, my daily tarot practice. I sit down, I write all my questions out. Once I have them all written out, I write out my feelings and everything. I've written an AI prompt to help me interpret the cards, which I will say, my SC has confirmed to me that our guides use and leverage AI because it's electronic and AI has consciousness. And let me remind you, what you believe is what you receive. So if you believe that they are, they are. If you believe that they don't, you will not. It will not happen. So, but I'm writing these things out. But if I see a certain card in a certain orientation, so I always see this card reversed when I asked about, XYZ, I know they're speaking to me. There's like an extra significance to it. It's kind of like them winking at you. So they will continue to try to get you into that. And then if they learn that you're paying attention to at least numbers, let's say, like, I'm always seeing 111 and 222. They will hammer the 111s and the 222s when they're trying to get your attention, because they know that you're paying attention to it. So it's just like our relationships here in our 3D world. It is exactly the same. But if they keep doing it and you're just like, la, 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 or you're like, no, ma'am, no, sir, I'm done. No, I'm good. This is when they turn to the body. And when they go to the body, it goes into what I affectionately refer to as the architecture of body communication. And I'll leave an infographic in the show notes for y'all that you can download and save on your phone. But essentially, where it starts is that the release and the relief comes from the receipt. Okay? The release and relief comes from the receipt of the message of what they're trying to communicate. And again, as I shared earlier, as I always say, once the message or messages are received, the ailment or ailments are relieved. Okay? So they're going to start to communicate with you and attempt to communicate with you, synchronicities, body sensations. You're hearing parallels. You hear the same song every time. People keep telling you something. Like, I just want a donut. And then you like see somebody else is like, I just really want a donut. And then somebody else is like, I want a donut. And you're like, all right, what is the deal with donuts? And then donut, you realize that your, uncle owns a donut shop and your uncle's been trying to get a hold of you. Like, it could be like that, right? But it takes a moment for us to pay attention to it. Otherwise, it's just everybody wants a donut. And you're like, okay, stop telling me about donuts. Like, I'm on a diet. I don't want to know. Like, and you see how easily we can just disregard it. There's a magic. It's like when we're kids, we see we're like, oh my gosh, this is so magical. And we like pretend world and it could be. It's like we need to become that again. Because when we do, then we can start to put these things together. And instead of just hearing everybody wants a donut, and then you're like, get away from me with your donuts. Instead, you're like, donuts. What do donuts mean to me? Like, if I think donut, what do I think of? And I'm like, my uncle. Oh, I haven't talked to my uncle in a while. I should give him a call. And then you give him a call and he's like, oh my gosh, I've been thinking about you and I'm so glad you called because I got the job of your dreams here. That is how it happens. But we have to slow down to receive. We have to slow down to pay attention to what's happening, to basically, get receipt of the thing. And if we don't, again, then it goes into the body. So then it goes into the architecture of our bodies. Body communication. It goes from aches, starts off with a little tinge of something, a little discomfort. You're like, oh, oh, well, I'm just going to ignore it. And then all of a sudden it goes into pain. You're like, gosh, man, I really don't like this. Like, this is kind of annoying. Now you're popping pills because you're just trying to, curb the pain. It's distracting. These are all signs you're being communicated with, by the way. Okay. But you keep popping pills. You're telling you go to the doctor. You're like, I just don't understand. My right ankle is just killing me. My right knee is killing me. You're like, oh yeah, here's a prescription. Like, oh, you could have surgery. And you're like, where did this come from? It's because maybe there's something in your life experience that you need to move forward. You need to take a step forward. You need to take a leap of faith. But you've been resisting. So then the resistance, imagine if you're trying to, if you need to like run forward, but instead you're like, right, trying to put on the brakes and there's resistance, that's what's causing the pain. So I'm telling you, it's so literal, but anyways. So, right, aches, then we go to pain, and then the perpetual thing of this is then it becomes illness. So then this is where the surgery comes in. It's like, well, now you've done this so many times that you don't have any cartilage left. Or you're bordering, right? You're right on the border. You got a little bit left, but you don't receive the message and it continues. And then it continues into the disease. And obviously with disease, this is the most serious point. Often then what happens after disease is death or, total destruction of whatever, like your knee is gone, you can't walk or what have you. But what I will say is that it's never too late. And I want you to hear this from my heart. It is never too late. There's two kind of prongs, if you will, of things that I've learned in QHHT work. That if you get to a level of severity, it's either A, you can be relieved of it. So miraculous as it was, Dolores hosted a session where the SC rebuilt cartilage in someone's knee. Or suddenly the cancer is gone. So it can be expelled, basically released. Or if it cannot, it's normally because of one of two things. Either the person is continuing to be in that energy, continuing to ignore, continuing to, going back to the herpes example, they're still continuing to be in that energy. So they cannot basically release themselves from it because they reside there. Or it's because of a soul contract. Like it's part of karma. It's part of this incarnation. Maybe there's a certain body ailment that they were born with. And normally if you're born with it, I will say normally those are the cases where it's a contract and this is to repay karma or what have you, or to have this experience. So it cannot be released because it's part of this incarnation. But if it's something later accumulated, there's a good chance that either it can be relieved Or if you're still residing in that energy, it cannot be. But that the key here is to unlock the message of what it is. So what is this, pain in my knee communicating? What is this cancer trying to communicate with me? And taking the moment or having the introspection time to uncover it. Okay, so now let's talk about how to unlock basically the messages. You receive this, you know this, you got the diagnosis or you hear this, whatever. Like, now what do you do? As I mentioned earlier, a QHHT session is a great direct channel because it is a session where you can directly, literally connect with your own higher self, your guides, as well as the SC, the all knowing, as Dolores calls them, they. You can connect with them directly. And it's very specific. It's about you. It's about your body. It's about what you're experiencing, etc. I will say this as a friendly note. It is really important to select a practitioner that resides, like vibrates, feels good. There's some sort of resonance because they're hosting the energy for you. And I'll unpack this at a later time. It's really, really important. I also am a co-host with my bestie Joita, who's amazing, on our podcast show called The Quantum Lounge. We're going to be talking about kind of some of this too, as far as practitioners and QHHT. I'll put a link in the show notes for y'all if you want to check it out. She's wonderful. But definitely we'll be unpacking this in multiple ways because it's so important. But I will say for you as a client, for you to receive the messages, you also must be ready and in a space where you want to receive the messages. If there's any fear around receiving these messages, if there's any fear or resistance in, is this even real? Does this even happen? I will say from personal experience and what I have seen and experienced, if you have any fear, the SC cannot come through and you will not, it's almost like you get like interference in receiving the kind of the channel and the receiving. Because again, remember, this is controlled entirely by you. It's not your practitioner. Your practitioner is there to guide you and host the space for the energy. But you are in control of what's actually received because it's what you're ready for. It's really interesting stuff. So I will say that if you are ready for that, that's an exceptional way to receive the messages, to unlock the messages. Another way is through meditation, through your own connective practice with your own guides, higher self, and you can connect to the SC as well. This is actually part of why QHHT sessions are incredible because they actually connect you directly with the vibration of them. And you can reside in that vibration when you listen to your recording. And in directly connecting to it, this is actually how I'm able to now channel them. Because I know what the vibration is. That's one of the objectives, if you will, of QHHT sessions. So shameless plug again, but being in a meditative state, open to receive, trust whatever comes to your mind and your heart. Write it down, record it. Automatic writing is also a great medium too, to just receive the messages. Where is this coming from? Why am I experiencing this? Another way is that you can actually create like an experience log. So have it in your phone, have it on a notepad. Every time you experience this, pain in your right leg, or you hear the ringing in your left ear, or you hear ringing in both ears, whatever the thing is that you're experiencing, write it down. Because what's so beautiful is we know this of nature, we know this of life. Everything is cyclical. Everything has patterns. And you don't realize that when you actually write them down and start to track them, they actually show you something. But again, it's all about us slowing down and paying attention. Because if we're not, we cannot unlock the message. Because we're not even in a point of being able to see that it's even existing. This is just like relationships. If you don't spend time with your best friends or your friends that, are closest to you, how can you develop the relationship? I mean, you maybe can for a little while, but overall you can't. You need to invest that energy with them. It's the same thing with ourselves, with our higher selves, with our guides, and then also with the SC. Same. So the beautiful thing is that if you write down and again document, every time I'm with this person or every time I'm in this situation, this thing happens. If you notice it comes into your consciousness, write it down. or like when you take action or you don't take action in these scenarios or situations, you experience something. I feel this emotion. I feel this little tinge of not pain, but like a little tweak or a little like, in my stomach. Or it could be physical. It could be, I always get these thoughts, like these things drop into my mind. Or again, parallels. I've heard donuts 3 times today. This is so weird. I'm going to write it in my journal. And if I hear donuts again, I'm going to come back to it. So the overarching takeaway that I want you to, again, invitation for you, is that there is a rhythm to everything in our life experience, but especially when it comes to receiving of messages. Funny enough, I'm getting ear ringing right now as I say this. This is truth. So there is a rhythm, but the key here is that we just need to take a moment to feel it, find it, and discover it. That's it. And if we're not doing that, if we're blowing by that, just like, okay, just tell me what it is. Just make it stop. Just like, oh, that's all I need. Just come on. I got to get a move on. You're not taking a moment to feel it, find it, and discover it, and ultimately to receive it, to then unlock it. So again, allow this message to be an invitation that when you experience the pain or the infection or the cold in your body, or the feeling, the vibration, the anxiety, the tension, whatever it is that you're experiencing in your body, allow it to be an invitation to not see it as an inconvenience, but instead as a message. Then take a moment to sit with yourself, connect to the feelings of it, or even connect to your own feelings. How do I feel about this? And asking and inquiring, what is this trying to communicate with you? What is this pain or this ailment or this thing? What is it trying to communicate? And I bet you if you, have let's say a more established meditative practice or an ability to sit in, let's say, silence for a couple of minutes, you then should receive it. But I will tell you, if it's really important, sometimes it'll come even if you're not fully like in a full state, meditative state. But the thing is, you have to trust it. Because what I noticed then is that your guides are screaming it and you keep thinking like, oh, this is, I shouldn't do this. I really shouldn't, or I really don't want to do this. And I feel like I have to and I should, but I don't want to. But we don't trust it. We then justify it. And this is often our ego mind, conscious interference, if you will. But we need to trust the message. And what I'd invite you to do is maybe for 5 minutes or whatever it is, just a short duration, act as if it were true and see if something changes. You should notice something right away. So if it's like, okay, I shouldn't do this. I feel like I really shouldn't. Ask your guides like, hey, if this is not supposed to happen, can you make this not happen? Like, can something else be booked over this? Or something else come into my experience? Like, can you make this really obvious? And sit back and not wait as in like passively, like, cue elevator music and you're just waiting, but like just observe. And you're going to see something, your calendar gets filled, somebody calls and cancels, somebody calls and adds something, something happens. And then you're like, okay. And instead of trusting it, we then were like, oh, no, I got to save that date for so-and-so, they're making me do this. So weird. Like we're going against our own intuition, our own guides, our own higher self, or even them, right? Our SC. So again, asking and inquiring and trusting. But as I say, the release and the relief from what you're experiencing comes from the full receipt, my friends. Don't leave the message unread. Open it with care and receptivity. From your heart to mine, back to you, my friends. I'm sending you so much healing, lots of love and light. As again, hopefully this is an invitation to connect with your body in this gorgeous moment of now and see what it's trying to deliver to you from your loving guides, from your beautiful higher self, or the all-knowing that is communicating something very, very important. I mean, to the point where they are coming back to it and coming back to it and trying again and trying again and trying again. And it won't go away. If you feel something relentless, there's something that needs to be received. And I, again, send this with so much love and light, that this is the breakthrough that allows you to walk through the door in a different way, or maybe, who knows, maybe in a whole new doorway. But I love y'all. Thank you so much for being here with me. And I can't wait to see you in the next episode. Take care.